Do I have that golden clickbait? Today's been an exciting day in a number of exciting days for Canada at the Tokyo Olympics. This early / mid-morning, we woke up to news of Neil deGrasse Tyson winning the men's 200-meter run. Yes, I know Andre deGrasse and Neil deGrasse Tyson are two extremely different people. The first is a Canadian sprinter, multiple-time world and Olympic medalist. The second is a famous public academic scientist. But if Andre deGrasse needs a nickname, I'll bestow one on him. Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm vlogging quick during a break between some of the events of the men's decathlon. Right now we actually have two athletes on the podium position, gold and bronze, with 6 events completed. Somehow they're contesting 10 athletic events over 2 days in the sweltering concrete jungle that is Tokyo. Some article claims that Tokyo outright blatantly lied about its weather in its Olympics proposal. As someone who traveled to Japan off-season, I can only comment that I enjoyed mild, moderate weather right at the end of Sakura cherry blossom season. In fact, I've traveled often during shoulder season because you hit the trifecta of the best. The best deals, the best weather, the best flexibility. What do I think about all of this Olympic level performance? I'm one for challenging myself too, of course, much below Olympic level, but I think I still challenge myself in a way that I'm proud of, that motivates me. Mentioned before, I'm still in the depths of a HIIT challenge, high intensity interval training. But to be completely honest, maybe it's overall been about the same as my normal pandemic dance routine, except my cardio has been compacted within a 20 to 30 minute-ish situation. That being said, I'll be happy when the challenge is over because, as I mentioned last week in my Simone Biles breakdown, I really like to do things according to my own control. Because this challenge has free swag attached, you have to meet some performance metrics. The performance metrics, while doable, are annoying. So that's what it is. I obviously never could have had Olympian discipline because I think that I also have to maintain fun. My main problem is that while I want to achieve new things, they also have to be fun things, as opposed to maybe some other people where when they achieve new things, they want other things attached. For example, I'm a money whore too, but I think that when you tie responsibility in any form to fun, the fun is often less fun. Maybe, too, that depends on what thing you're trying to achieve. For example, in the adventure, travel, extreme sport, and wild animal worlds, the risk reward is definitely well worth it. Just today, I've been editing my rockumentary. I'm well on my way. The whole day is me highlighting 30-second snippets of an adventure course, parkour, free running course in Moncton, Canada. While I sometimes am guilty of thinking that Canada is lower on the list when it comes to fun per value. Today I edited an entire probably 15 minutes worth of highlights, which is actually 30 separate highlights. Canada can be fun, but I'd still maintain that things are just too expensive here, like in most of the Western world. That's why I prefer to backpack in the developing world, because you can multiply your currency usually by a 10 to 1 value ratio. So, for example, one night in a hostel will compare prices. Canada's $50 per night could buy 10 to 15 nights in a Thai hostel. Are they okay? Are they clean? Yes, they're clean enough, because even in the developing world, they know in order to attract even the bummiest of backpackers, they have a bare minimum standard of quality. In fact, most all of the accommodations I've stayed in abroad, whether paid or free, have been cleaner, better quality than I am at home. Should I cheat? What I've been doing is watching CBC's Olympic coverage free on Amazon Prime. The best is it's basically like DirecTV? Or what is it when you can fast forward through commercials? Whatever that's called, I have that. So I actually save a lot of time. That's how I've been able to catch up on all of the action live and also edit my rockumentary at the same time. I complement watching live action with Google searching. Because we are on the opposite side of the world to Japan, the timing schedule of the sports can be troublesome. So, what am I doing now? Am I going to introduce tutting again? Yes, I'm replacing my normal dance routine with just some easygoing stuff. I've been pleasantly surprised to observe tutting in a number of Olympic sports. First, to explain, tutting is inspired by ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics that portrayed humans and other human-animal hybrids with 90-degree limbs. Oh, this is covering my tut. Okay, so since I'm testing how much I'll retain of my own dance practice and choreography in 3 weeks, that's an indication that I'm a little off. Some Olympic gymnasts incorporated the tuts. Some artistic swimmers incorporated the tuts. Did I observe anyone else? In any case, they've renamed synchronized swimming to artistic swimming, I think with good intent. I've been watching, and it is artistic more than just synchronized. Artistic is a more all-encompassing term that encapsulates the dance elements. Gymnastics, they've also embraced the dance aspect, especially in the floor exercise. I think that athletes should really cross-train and expose themselves to different ideas. Of course, maybe they have to pay other people to do it, their coaching staff, but especially disciplines that have the artistic choreography and those types of elements really could stand to improve by just exposing themselves to different types of styles. Dance in itself has so much range, and even though I've often commented on how the pandemic year has been the year of breakdancing for me, the year has more generically been the year of dancing for me. Alongside breakdance, I've also learned tutting, waacking, threading, a lot. Just a lot. So this will be probably another week dance week. I'll make up for it in spades. To be completely honest, I probably should have taken some extended time off from the dancing because that's what people usually do. You can develop repetitive stress injuries if you perform the same exercises consistently all the time. Before this HIIT challenge, I was 3 days on, 2 days off. 3 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off. Yeah, that's what I was doing from before. So now, what am I doing? I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing to satisfy a challenge. But what I have done is I've rested from subspecific types of dance just to give certain muscle groups, certain parts of my body a rest. That's been good. And I encourage people to do that in general. This has been forced, but there's always that additional gift monetary element that can push you in the right direction. That's what I find about myself. Money, gifts are often the last pushing step, provide maybe the last 10% to 25% to encourage me over any resistive inertia. But since it often provides that last push, even sometimes I'm confused about what drives me. But I think money drives me about as much as it does for a human who can live without it. Is that a complicated answer? I'll trace back to a story that I often come to tell when I'm discussing money issues. In 2018, when I had planned a long, gruesome 4 months of backpacking through the African bush in 13 countries, I calculated poorly. I thought that I'd forego the opportunity to trek with wild gorillas because, quite honestly, that animal trek is amongst one of the most expensive in the world. How do I benchmark that? I've trekked wild penguins in Antarctica. For the price of 2 treks for 3 people, 1 person can trek the gorillas once. That's how expensive it is. It's essentially 6 times more expensive. So at first I thought, fuck it. In Africa, I'll be on 30 plus game safari drives. Do I really need to trek gorillas for the same price as 45 days bush camping in Africa? But once I landed in Europe, which was going to be my touch-off point into Africa, I thought to myself, what the fuck else do I spend my money on? Really, I can cut the comfort down to nothing. So what I did was I cut my entire accommodation budget in Europe. How did I manage? Some of it was couch surfing for free, but because I also explored some of the smaller countries in Europe landlocked, for example, San Marino, landlocked by Italy, very few hosts were in the scene. So, some nights I just slept out on the streets, wherever and whenever. I slept on park benches. I slept standing up in a telephone booth. I slept in a castle. I slept in a museum. So I was essentially homeless, but it was a great adventure. And the money that I saved by cutting out my accommodation budget, I could afford to trek gorillas in Africa, which was one of my most memorable experiences. In fact, on YouTube's Fierce Fridays, I have a 15-second snippet of an interaction with a wild baby gorilla. The baby gorilla, I'm gonna anthropomorphize, because that's how I feel about primates that share 98+% of our DNA. That baby gorilla looked me in the eyes with a playful mischievousness, like a toddler. I had a bright green bag hanging off my shoulder that I purposely brought because I knew that maybe it would capture an animal's attention. I probably did some things right on the skirt of the rules, but in any case, that baby gorilla, despite being a baby, grabbed at my green bag and started a tug of war with me. To be fair, I'm sure the baby probably could have gruesomely ripped my arms off, but these wild gorillas are still habituated to humans, as in, they're wild, but they understand what it's like to be around humans. In any case, the guides that we trek with are experts with machetes and guns, including a member of the Ugandan Armed Forces. Since the forest, the Buwindi Impenetrable Forest, is right on the border with Congo, they have to maintain some sense of order. The artillery is just as much for human foes as they are for animal foes. As the gorilla grunted and snorted in frustration, I gently retrieved my bag from his still decently strong hands. I just remember everything about that moment, but mostly the humanity of it. That gorilla was like a little child. Even though we were in a different type of environment, a musty, dank jungle, I felt more at home with him than many humans that I've come across. I've been trying to contextualize this and many other experiences, and Brett Weinstein, the evolutionary biologist, has probably codified my ideas best. So in any case, I'm reminiscing down memory lane because it's helped me, first of all, endure this pandemic. But it's also helped me have a sense of practicality, a sense of accomplishment about the pandemic. Without the pandemic, I'd have never learned to dance the way I have. Without the pandemic, I'd have never choreographed dances myself. Without the pandemic, I'd have never had the time to really collate all of my highlight reel moments from being an adventurer. Yes, my YouTube does have a couple of playlists that summarize the loose themes: Makeup Free Mondays, Travel Tuesdays, What the Fuck Wednesdays, and Fierce Fridays, which cover art, travel, sports, and animals. But there's just so much in my treasure trove that I never would have had the time to pour over, because it's been an exercise. It's been tons and tons of footage that would take months to watch second by second full time. So what's happened is that now that I've had a brief break in that specific type of adventure, I can actually come back to my adventure career with different eyes. Because first, I have a new level of creativity from the dancing and choreographing. Second, that creativity, plus me reviewing all my footage, has me thinking differently about how I'm going to be filming in the future. Does this mean I'm a filmmaker in waiting? I'd argue I've been a filmmaker already for probably more than a decade, but I've done a very run-and-gun approach. Maybe I can, do things better. I have the equipment available. I know what different cameras do now after watching everything. And I can probably take some time to plan out shots more. That's probably the difference between someone who's still prioritizing the travel and adventure and sports and animals first versus someone who can maybe elevate the filmmaking process to slightly under or equal to that level. That's maybe what I'll be doing. Is that a weak sauce moonwalk this week? Yeah, it is a little bit. I want to check the status on our gold goat. The term goat's thrown around a lot. Who's a goat? Do you have the right to call yourself a goat? Yeah, I think so. Greatest is a subjective term. You can be greatest because you have a limited knowledge base from which to pick from. For example, you could be the greatest that you know of, but it's that you know relatively few people that you're the greatest. But I find it interesting because I've never really had that sense of competition vis-a-vis other people. If I had that, I might have really worked through all of that terrible bullshit in high school. Even when I was working, I was haphazard about it. I'm just much more serious now about executing on my adventures. That's what I focus my serious energy on. So all of the skills that I learned about how to be an effective communicator, about how to be an effective executor, I've just performed in a different realm than most people would. I'd argue that's the realm that's the most important though. Because why, other than money, are you wasting all your skills on other parties? Of course, back to last week's discussion, there are contracts that you have to fulfill. I get that. But other than that, what happens is that most people drain themselves of all of their useful battery life at work. They have nothing left, even if they have money left. Most people that are holding off on having adventures, whether they be in travel, in sport, in animal encounters, it's because they have mental blocks rather than financial or other blocks. Money's an easy thing to blame, but often it's a number of different mental blocks and barriers. One that's surprisingly recurring is, what will others think? I addressed that one last week fairly thoroughly, so I'll leave that up as my gold standard answer. But I've never understood that. As a brief summary of last week, as long as you fulfill your motherfucking contracts that you entered into, that's all that matters. Everything else, what people think of you in a general sense, who cares?